There we go, guys. We're live. We're off the mark. Nice one. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Monday. Hope you've all had a good weekend. A bit of a bummer about the weather this morning. We've got it's absolutely bouncing down over here, guys. So, I think it might be an exercise in the house kind of day. But yeah, we're into another week. We are back. We've got session 4 of our pre-employability and well-being course. And as promised, today we're looking at just different types of muscle in the body, characteristics of different types of muscle. What sets apart different groups, what jobs do they do, all of that sort of thing, including our skeletal muscles, which is essentially all the ones that you're going to be seeing in the mirror when you look, all the ones that you'll be working in the gym, your biceps, your triceps, your deltoids, and all the proper names for, your chest muscles, your abs, your bum muscles, and all of that sort of thing. So we're going to have a look into all of that this morning, just get a little bit more familiar with it, because understanding how the muscle works, how we can exercise it, of course, means we can exercise it not just overall, but exercise it safely as well. We get an idea how our muscle moves. We know what ranges we should be carrying it through, what ranges are going to cause it strain and potentially injury. So we'll sort of ease our way through this morning, guys. We'll just nice and steady away. If you're watching along in the chat and you've got any questions or anything that you want to join in with, guys, as always, just chime in the chat. If not, if you're watching back later on in the week, whenever you get a little bit of time, just drop me an email if you've got any questions. My email is on the last slide from this morning. But also we've got a little description section underneath the YouTube video. So if you click the little drop down arrow or find the description section underneath the YouTube video, it takes you to just like a little description. So what we've actually got in there, guys, my email's in there if you do need it. Of course, we've got a fitness video like we've had included in the last couple of weeks for you to go and try at the end of the session, and of course we've got a little survey to do as well, which of course I'll mention towards the end of the session. But my email address is in there, guys, if you need it, as well as all the other supplementary learner info that you might need, so learner handbooks in there, anything to do with sort of learning safely online, and browsing safely and that sort of thing, and of course what to do with a concern or a query and where to take that, guys. So pretty much going to be to myself, but if you want any more information to do with any of that, guys, that's all in that description as well, and of course links to all of our socials as well. So if you want to check out there, keep sort of up to date with what's going on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, guys, we are on there, so all the links for those are in there as well. But yeah, my email's in there if you need it, guys. So let's get into it then, because we've got an awful lot of muscle in the body, and we've actually got 3 different types of muscle. But just before we dive in, I want to see where we are in terms of sort of any muscles that you might already be familiar with, any names that you've maybe come across before. So what I'll do, guys, I'll give it 5 minutes or so. I'll give you just a little bit of time to look through, pick out any names of muscles in here that you can find. Yeah, so 5 minutes. Try and find any names of muscles that you've come across before. If you see any that you think could be a muscle but you're not entirely sure, write it down, and like I say, you'll get all the answers when we go through in about 5 minutes, so we can have a little bit of a look and see just what muscles we're already familiar with, guys, and maybe you've exercised before, maybe you've been in gyms before, maybe you've done certain sports where you've picked up a certain, a little bit of knowledge about different muscles and stuff like that. I think it's kind of hard to physically train for anything, sports, athletics, aesthetics, where we're just talking about the way that people look. It's hard to do any of those things, going and playing football. Even just growing up playing football, I became familiar with hamstrings and quadriceps and stuff like that. So maybe there are a couple that you've already heard of. Maybe there's a couple that you know the names of, but not the proper scientific names. So yeah, just quite interesting to see where we're at going into this morning's session, and then have a little bit of a recap at the end and see, how far we have actually come through the morning. So another couple of minutes, guys. Like I say, just picking out as many as you can. And to give you a little bit of help. I don't think any of them run backwards. Yeah, so they're not going to be like starting here and coming upwards. Yeah, I think they all run downwards or like right ways across the screen, as like how you would read it. So before we start whipping through any answers, little fun fact really, I guess. A lot of our muscles in the body actually work in pairs, and we have sort of opposite pairs. So one of the best examples you could give of the working pairs would be the front of your arm and the back of your arm. Yeah. So in here, of course, we've got your elbow joint, which moves like a hinge. It opens and it closes again. But the bones just allow for that movement. The bones don't actually create that movement. What creates the movement is the muscle. So your brain sends a signal down your nervous system and tells your body or your body part to do whatever it's going to do. And in this case, I'm going to bring my palm in towards my body. So if I'm bringing it in that way, my biceps work and my bicep gets shorter, yeah, almost like a pull. Yeah. Now, when that happens, the tricep at the back of the arm gets longer and gets stretched out. Whereas when I'm opening up my elbow and extending my arm, this pulls and gets shorter and the bicep gets longer. Yeah, so we've got a bicep and a tricep working kind of opposite each other to control different parts of one range. You know, it's exactly the same as sort of with your legs. Again, you've got your knee, your quadriceps that'll bring your leg up and help you extend your knee. And then, of course, if you're trying to bring your heel in towards your bum, you work in your hamstring. Yeah, so we've got, again, those two muscles working opposite each other. So think about if you were to strengthen one muscle, like, again, coming back to my arm, if I really strengthened this bicep, and it would put a lot of tension on there. But if I'm not exercising my tricep just as much, I'm going to get like a muscular imbalance, and that's actually how we end up getting certain pain and discomfort and stuff like that. I used to have a lad who, like a mate who used to do pull-ups every day. He was doing pull-ups every day, and one of them, he was a student, he had one of them pull-up bars in the doorway. Every time he walked past, he'd do like 10 pull-ups or whatever it was. And his back muscles actually got overdeveloped in comparison to his chest. So it was really pulling his shoulders back, and it was putting an arch into his back and causing him a lot of pain just from really working one muscle group and ignoring another muscle group, you know. So just another example of why we need this good, nice, evenly balanced approach to training. You know, we've got to spread the effort out around the body and not just work on like a particular body part that we really enjoy training or something like that. You know, like it's really easy to fall into if you're training. Yeah, I don't know, you're like guys like training their chest or their arms or whatever it is, but of course you've got to do all the muscles, because the body works best when it's working kind of in sync with itself, or perfectly balanced, as all things should be, as Thanos would say. Okay, guys, so if you want another couple of minutes to, you know, maybe see if you can pick another couple of answers out of there, by all means pause it here and just get caught up with the rest of the session whenever you're done. But we'll start moving on, guys. So I won't give too much of a description of each of these muscles as we go through, because we'll be able to see them on an actual diagram and talk about them in a little bit more depth on there. So what I'll do, we'll whip through the answers and then we'll get a look into where they actually sit on the body, how they move, and all of that sort of stuff. So right, guys, so here's one I prepared earlier. We've got the answer slide ready to go. So I'll start on this left hand column, working downwards, and then we'll come and do the rows. So guys, we've got, starting from this G, coming all the way down this left hand side, gastrocnemius. Yeah, gastrocnemius, and that is the fancy name for your calf muscle. Really, that is your calf muscle. And so I always remember this little sneaky hidden C that's in there as well. It's gastrocnemius, really, isn't it? But that's the way that I remember it, guys. It's like I say, it's just a fancy name for your calf, and your calves are kind of notoriously difficult to certainly add mass and get them to grow. As a lot of bodybuilders, it's just one of them areas. But calves are really important as well, obviously, for sort of just our day-to-day movement, even walking and stuff like that, getting upstairs. So important muscle, guys, gives us a lot of mobility and a lot of not necessarily flexibility, but like a lot of choice in what we can do in terms of movement. So gastrocnemius is the calf, guys. Next one across, we've got Latissimus Dorsi. Yeah. So the way that I remember that, we've got our lats. Yeah. Just think of them as lats, guys. So they're down your side. They're these ones here. So with lats, we're thinking sort of the way that I remember lats is thinking about lat as lateral. So lateral means sort of side to side, or lateral movement is side to side. Yeah. And these muscles sit on your side. Yeah, so that's the way that I remember it, guys. Latissimus dorsi, or your lats, are these big muscles on your side that are going to help you pull in, overhead pulls, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, you can see them sort of, like I say, on your side. If you were to look at a bodybuilder or an athlete or something like that, and they've got that big muscle that sort of starts in their armpits and comes down to their waist and gives them like a really tapered sort of look, like on big guys, or on guys that have really got them developed, they are sometimes sort of slangily referred to as wings, because they do sort of pop out in there and can really be really defined if you train them. But yeah, that's what our Latissimus dorsi are, guys, and we'll get a look at them in just a second. Tricep, of course, I already mentioned, sort of coming into the session when I was talking about that hinge effect in the elbow. Of course, the tricep is the back of your arm. Yeah, so it's responsible for a lot of pushing movements, helping lock out that elbow. And like I say, even certain pulling movements as well, depending on what it is that we're doing. Say you're doing like an overhead tricep extension or something like that. Of course, we're bringing that tricep in and making it work. So tricep gets its name from the fact that it is 3 separate muscle heads, or 3 separate muscles, really, to keep it simple. So we've got 3 individual muscles, kinda, and that is where it comes from, tricep. Yeah, just as the bicep we think of as one muscle, but it's actually 2 heads, a long head and a short head, which controls different parts of movement. But yes, and exactly the same in the legs. Quadricep, your thigh muscles, is 4. Yeah, so we've got bicep in the front of the arm, 2 muscles, tricep in the back of the arm is 3, and quadriceps on the thighs, which is 4. Yeah, so that's where those are, guys. So it was tricep. Pectorals might be one that you've come across before, might be a term that you're familiar with. So your pectorals, or your pecs, are essentially just your chest. Yeah, or almost like your breast muscle, I guess, really. So responsible for sort of like a hugging movement, pushing movement. It's one of the main ones that you would hit like through press-ups and stuff like. Oh, did we sell the hiccups this morning? Yeah, so pectorals on the front of your body, sitting on top of your rib cage. Oh, it's gonna be a fun morning. It's gonna be a fun morning. Okay, guys, so that was pectorals. Okay. Abdominals then. So abdominals, guys, is kind of the fancy name for our abs, really. You might have heard of the like 6-pack area referred to as your abs, and that's kind of all your abs are, guys. I think when people hear abs, they think about or when they hear sort of abs, they think about core training and working your core. Whereas when it comes to abs, all the abdominals are like 2 really shallow sheets of muscle that sit on the front of your core. So yeah, they make up your 6-pack, guys, but your 6-pack and your abs and your abdominals don't necessarily determine core strength, because that is one muscle out of many, which is why when you're doing core training and stuff like that and trying to work on core strength, just doing a load of sit-ups and stuff like that doesn't necessarily work, because that's just working one muscle, whereas it's all the deeper lying muscles that we do need to work. So when we think of abs, guys, we're not talking about core strength really, we're just talking about those ab muscles that sit on the outside of your core, that would make up and be your six-pack. Yeah, and for all people will joke, oh no, I have no abs. We do all have abs, it's just a case of how well we can see them and how well defined they are. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't take a significant amount of body fat really to start to hide your abs as well. So, you know, we do all have them. They're all doing the same job. Some are more defined than others. But again, it's a case of how defined you want them to be and what sacrifices are you willing to make. Do you know what I mean? And it's really hard to sort of have that sort of physique year round as well. You know, I think when we see people on the front of Men's Health magazines or on social media who've got like really defined abs, that six-pack sort of beach body look, it's really easy to forget that, you know, they don't look like that year round. They look like that on the day that the photographer came to do the photo shoot. You know, it's their job. They look like that on that day, but there's no way that they look like that year round, guys. It's just impossible to an extent. So yeah, we do all have abs. That is where they sit. But yeah, when we're talking about abs, we're not necessarily talking about the full core. We're just talking, like I say, that sort of external wall really. And I think that's all the ones running down over. So let's come across ways then. So start with this top row. So we've got Gluteus Maximus at the top. Yeah, so Gluteus Maximus. Gluteus Maximus, guys, is essentially your bum muscle. Yeah, it's your bum muscle, and it is the biggest single muscle in the body, actually, guys. So the single biggest muscle in the body is the glutes, or the bum muscle, and gluteus, you know, however you want to remember it. That's how I do it. So we've got Gluteus Maximus is the bum, and like I say, responsible for a lot of, like, if you're going up the stairs or stepping up onto something really high, of course your bum muscle is going to be firing to help you sort of extend your leg and get up that height as well. So that's the glutes. Again, I mentioned bicep earlier. We're thinking this one here on the outside of the arm helps me sort of flex my arm and bring it in close to my head. Deltoid, guys, so deltoids. We've actually got a couple of different deltoids. So what we've got the deltoids really are your shoulder muscles. Yeah, so these muscles that sit around here. But we've got a front deltoid, which does a lot of sort of front raising sort of stuff, helping to bring the arm in front of the body. We've got a lateral or a medial deltoid at the side that helps us lift our arm up to the side. And we've actually got a small one right on the back of our shoulder as well that helps us pull and do a lot of pulling movements. So we've got front, side, and rear delts. Yeah, but the deltoid, guys, or the delts, are always to do with the shoulders. And, you know, when you think about that shoulder joint and how much range we have and how many different angles we can move our shoulders in, it makes sense that we've got a couple of different muscles controlling different areas of that range, I guess. Okay, guys, so that's delts on our shoulders. Then we've got our hamstrings, yeah. So our hamstrings is the muscle down the back of your leg from your bum to your to the back of your knee, really. That's your hamstring. Really easy to underdevelop your hamstring, especially if you're playing a lot of football and a lot of running sports. And that's where you see a lot of footballers have problems, actually. You know, I remember loads of footballers over the years, to be honest, have had really bad hamstring problems, either through the way that they run or just through the training that they're doing, and their quads and their thigh muscles are getting overdeveloped, and the hamstrings aren't. But the hamstring, guys, down the back of your legs, and same again, that's actually another collection of sort of smaller muscles as well. But we only need to remember the hamstring, really. Okay, guys, then we've got the trapezius, which are these sort of that stick out either side of your neck. Yeah, you know, on like some big, muscly built guys, they look like really defined, and you can really sort of see them sticking up by the neck. And actually a really big muscle that we'll get a look at in just a second when we look at the diagram. You can see where all these muscles are and what they actually look like. But these muscles here, guys, these are the ones that we carry so much tension in these. And again, some of it's postural, from the way that we sit. You know, if we sit rounded forward, or maybe you've got your head down quite a lot, looking at your phone or looking at the keyboard or whatever. And this muscle here ends up taking quite a lot of strain, which is why if you go for a massage or something like that, this is probably one of the first muscles that they'll start with. But again, even emotional baggage and stress can sort of manifest and sit in our muscles as well. And again, these neck muscles can really get a lot of wear and tear over time, guys. So of course, it's where our neck stretches come in handy, and of course making sure that we're working these muscles effectively and strengthening them as well, which sounds really easy when you think about them just being up here. But again, we'll get a look at them and we'll realize that it's actually a bigger, more complicated muscle than you might think. Okay, guys, so the last one is one that I know I've already mentioned this morning, and it is the quadricep. Yeah, so the big bit of muscle on the front of your thigh, pretty much. Yeah, so between your hip and your knee, those are your quadriceps, really, we should say, because again, there's four separate muscles making up that group. But yeah, that's your quadriceps, guys. So your quadriceps is the biggest muscle group in the body. Yeah, so the glutes, or the gluteus maximus, is the biggest single muscle, but the quads are the biggest muscle group. Yeah. So when we think about what we looked at the other week, when we looked at how the heart works and the role of the heart in delivering oxygen to the muscles to help them move, we can start to make sense why certain exercises get us more out of breath than others. Like if you do a bicep curl and you're just using this one muscle there, well, you're not using a great deal of muscle all in one go, so your body can really easily provide that muscle with oxygen without your heart rate needing to really pick up and work any harder. Now, when you start doing stuff like squats and lunges and jumping, you're then using not only the biggest single muscle in the body in the glutes, but also the biggest muscle group in the body in the quads. You've got both of those firing at once in a squat. So that is so much more muscle, when you think how big your thigh and your bum might be compared to your bicep, just your one little bicep, or this tiny little muscle at the front of your shoulder, so that is why our heart rate picks up when we're doing that sort of stuff, so we actually end up burning more calories as well through squats, lunges, what we would probably call compound movements. And we can understand those a little bit better next week when we look at joints as well. But when we're thinking about compound movements, it's kind of exercises that move more than one joint. Yeah. So for example, if I do what would be classed as like a chest fly or a pec fly, and I'm coming into there like that, then I'm only using one joint, and that's the shoulder joint. Yeah. And so I'm only really using one muscle, this pectoral here. So if I want to burn more calories and if I want to work more muscle at once, what I can do, turn that into a press up. So now I'm not just moving at the shoulder, I'm moving at the elbow as well. So I'm moving more muscle now. Yeah, compound movement, more than one. So what we've got these compound movements which burn more calories because we're using that much more muscle. Now we can start to see why, guys, and especially when we go to this diagram here. So what the point that I'm just making there, instead of using this one muscle here, you're going to use so much more calories and so much more muscle and therefore so much more oxygen working kind of everything from the waist down. Yeah, look how much more muscle is included there. So that muscle all needs oxygen. So it needs blood. So your heart needs to work harder. Your lungs need to work harder to bring the oxygen in. And that is why, like I say, certain things are harder and feel harder than others. So again, if you are thinking about burning calories and that sort of thing, and trying to sort of develop and tone as much muscle as you can at once, you're better off doing those bigger exercises, you know, anything that moves more than one joint at once. If you're trying to burn a load of calories to drop some weight or whatever it might be, doing an isolation exercise is kind of potentially time that could be spent doing something that would be more beneficial. An isolation exercise is the opposite of compound, really. So an isolation exercise, we're thinking about just working one muscle at once, which was exactly what that first exercise was. Like thinking about the shoulders again. If I was to do a front raise, yeah, so if I've got a weight in my hand and I'm standing side on and I'm just lifting it, that's only moving one joint because it's just the shoulder. Yeah. Again, I can make that a little bit more taxing on the body. I can make the body work a little bit harder by doing the overhead press instead. So now I'm pushing weights up, and now I'm using not just the shoulder joint, but I'm using the elbow joint as well. Yeah, so again, we're making a compound exercise. We work harder, we burn more fat, we burn more calories, and we stimulate more muscle as well, guys. Those isolation exercises have a place, but only when you're really trying to either isolate a muscle to make it work by itself to strengthen it, or try and really tone it in terms of definition and the way it looks visually, you know. But 99% of us don't really worry about it that much, to be honest. You know, a lot of us just want to feel good, not feel like even like getting upstairs and doing day-to-day tasks is difficult. A lot of us go to the gym and train and exercise for longevity and that side of thing, you know. So that tiny little bit of extra definition in your tricep for what you've stood there and spent half an hour just doing tricep extensions and tricep exercises for, you know, for me, I'd rather that's half an hour I could be spending with family, friends, whatever, do you know what I mean? Or again, doing something in the gym that's a little bit more worthwhile. But, you know, hopefully, guys, that just gives us a little bit of understanding why certain exercises feel different to others, you know, besides the fact that you maybe work in different body parts. You know, I was always, again, pre-PT role, when I just used to go to the gym. I used to find it amazing. I used to be like really, really confused why I used to play a lot of football, but working my legs still felt really, really hard a lot of the time. And this is why, you know, it's that much muscle, it's that demanding on your system. But of course, that's the only way that your body gets better at doing it as well, guys. So don't skip leg day. Skip leg day. Right, guys, cool. So let's have a look at some of these muscles, how they move, where they actually are on the body as well. So I'm actually going to put my technological skills to the test and see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay, guys, cool. So I can actually see when we're talking skeletal muscles, then, guys, what we are referring to, of course, is muscle that connects onto bone. Yeah, so allowing us to move, really, like I say, to send signals to these muscles to contract in certain directions, which pulls our skeleton and therefore our body and our physical being through whatever range of movements it is that we've chosen to do. So these muscles are what we would call voluntary muscles. So they're muscles that we're in control of, you know, or at least sort of typically we're in control of them. So of course, you use again deltoids as an example. This muscle isn't going to make my arm raise above my head unless I tell it to. Yeah. So it's not like the heart, which is its own muscle, cardiac muscle, which it's a different type of muscle. But your heart muscle, you don't need to control. Yeah, that would get exhausted if you needed to tell your heart to beat every single time it needed to beat. So your heart is what we call involuntary muscle. Yeah, you're not in control of it. You don't control your heart. It's just going to do its own thing. Whereas in order for this, like I say, to get my left hand to end up above my head, I need to willingly decide to fire this muscle there. Yeah. So that's why we call them voluntary muscles, guys, because we're in control of how and when they move, you know, at least the majority of us, the majority of the time. So that's why we can even see some of the more sort of specialist muscles, I guess we could say. Like even in the face, like the face has so many muscles, you know, that's that old saying, isn't it? It takes more muscle to frown than it does to smile. So what's the harm in smiling, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean we do have these muscles sort of sitting on the outside of the skull, controlling our face, our facial expressions and our movements. But we don't need to worry too much about sort of what's what and get hung up on the names and stuff like that. So the first real muscle that we'd come across from when we're looking at the body from the front on, the first real muscle that we would come across would be the deltoid. So again, those shoulder muscles. So again, we can see that we've got I don't know what this diagram on the right hand side is doing here. We'll get to that in a second. So when it comes to the deltoid, like I mentioned, we've got one on the front. There's one on the side that we can't see very well because we don't have the side view, and there's one on the back as well. So pushing forward is going to use your front deltoid. Pulling backwards is going to use your rear deltoid. And like I say, anything, bring your arms out to the side, even star jumps and stuff like that, all works that side deltoid. Yeah, so again, we can see that, let's see if I can zoom any further. Really push me up. There we go, guys. So a little bit further than we might have wanted to go, but I find it's really helpful to be able to see these little fibers in the muscles, and we can see the way that they sort of run in the direction that they move in. Yeah, and that gives us an idea of how those muscles move and stretch, really. So what we've got from the pecs, we can see that they sort of run from the center of the chest outwards towards the armpit. Yeah, which implies that they need to stretch acrossways, which is why the best way to work, or some of the best ways to work your chest muscles or your pecs, are things like pec flies. Because we can see these muscles here, as I bring my arm out, would stretch, and then to bring my arm back in, they're going to contract. Yeah, from the way that those muscle fibers move side to side, we can sort of come to figure out that your chest doesn't really work much through that range at all. Yeah, because that's not the way that your chest muscle moves and works. So that muscle there feels more like shoulder, which makes sense because we can see the way that these shoulders, these deltoids are structured. Yeah, the fibers sort of run with the shoulder and come down over. Yeah, so like I say, we can really see these different striations, is what we call them, and you'll only see them on skeletal muscles. Yeah, you don't see these striations. You don't see them on the heart, and you don't see them on our other type of muscle, which is smooth muscle, which is essentially your blood vessels and your organs. Yeah, if you were to look at your lungs or your kidney or your heart, like I say, you won't see these striations at all. It's all in the skeletal muscles. But yeah, we can see how they move exactly like the abdominals here. You know, we can see that the fibers run upwards. So in order to stretch them, you know, we would need to stretch them upwards, which is why we sort of lean backwards to get the ab stretch. And then we come forward to do like a sit-up or a crunch or something like that. Yeah, we're working our ab muscles through that range. We sit back and they stretch. Yeah, it's exactly just like sitting back, push your chest out and breathe. You might actually feel that stretch. And then as you come forward, your abs are going to shorten as well. Yeah, so like I say, it's really helpful to be able to see where these muscles are, where they sit, and how they all sort of fit together, and gives us an idea, like I say, how we can move them and how we can move through certain ranges safely without potentially hurting ourselves. Okay, guys, so as I mentioned, that was the deltoids. We've got our biceps as well. Again, front of the arm, brings again our sort of palm in toward our body. So bicep runs down the front of the arm, and like I say, we've got two heads of the bicep. Yeah, so we can see we've got the inner head and sort of the outer head as well. So different exercises are going to work different parts of those muscles. Yeah, so again, thinking about it like from biceps point of view, if you've maybe done bicep curls, would normally be sort of arms by your side, doing that sort of thing. Yeah, I think we've probably all seen bicep curls at some point. So if I've got my elbows in front of my body, I'm working one part of the bicep, whereas if I can sort of come to there and then curl. It's the same body part moving, it's the same joint moving, but I'm using a totally different part of the same muscle. Yeah, I'm either using one of these two heads on the bicep. Yeah, so again, bicep, bi means we've got two different parts of the muscle, but it is all just referred to as the bicep. Pectorals, guys, we've already talked about these ones that sit on our chest muscles. Of course, we've all got those chest muscles as well. It's just a case of how well defined they are. And of course, we've all got those chest muscles sort of regardless of gender as well. Abdominals, you know, we sort of mentioned these. Well, it is essentially the muscle that gives us our six-pack or comes through to make our six-pack. But like what we've actually got, we've got two separate sheets of muscle that sort of sit side by side on the front of the core. So they don't always sit perfectly flush together, which is why you might actually see people with a six-pack, but they're like slightly off-center. Yeah, they're not symmetrical. So that's what we've got there, guys. And like I say, that is just a really thin sheet on the outside of your core. And then you've got all of these deeper muscles as well, you know, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, all of that sort of stuff as well makes up your core strength. So when we're thinking about core, it's not just about these muscles here, guys. Yeah, we're thinking about everything. Like almost what I always refer to as like your trunk, as in your tree trunk, not your elephant's trunk, your tree trunk, guys. Yeah, what makes up your core, you know, yeah, your actual sort of trunk, and how strong is that, including your lower back. And these muscles here that we see on the outside that aren't labeled, but they're called the obliques, and they control a lot of sort of twisting movements side to side, flexing, sort of stretching side to side, all come from that obliques, or from those obliques there as well, guys. So part of your core as well. And like I say, for a good strong core, you want all of these muscles developed, not just your abdominals, as much as having a nice strong six-pack might be nice, you know what I mean? It's more about core strength and function. Okay, guys, so that was abdominals. On to just the last one really that we need to think about from the front of the body. We have, of course, got our quadriceps, which I've mentioned as well this morning already. Big muscle on the front of the thigh. So, like I say, again, 4 different muscles, but we only need to worry about the collection of them, the quadriceps, the 4 muscles that are really important in, of course, movement and getting us around. I guess what those muscles do really is, like I say, a lot of movement at the knee joint as well. So I'll get my can on for you guys. So again, big muscle across the top of the thigh. If I decide I want to straighten my leg, this is going to shorten, raising that leg up. Yeah, there we go. So that's what the quadriceps do. Again, if you're jumping, running, pressing anything with your legs. Again, thinking about coming to the gym, we've got squats, lunges, a lot of exercises are going to work those quadriceps as well. And again, like I say, we can now understand why usually it's legs exercises in general, but you know, other compound exercises as well can do the same thing. There are certain exercises that are just going to get you out of breath so much more and burn more calories as well. So that's where we start thinking about being smart with our training, guys. You know, I don't think anybody really, not many people really want to spend much more time in the gym than they need to for what their goals are. So again, if you can think about what your goals are and train very specific to them, you know, you can actually get a lot more out of your time, and maybe even save yourself, you know, a day or two a week that you don't actually need to do any exercise, you know. I've had clients before that like they would go to the gym 5-6 days a week and feel like they weren't getting anywhere. And it gets stressful because, you know, you work all day, you come home, you sort the kids out, you go out to the gym for an hour, you get in, and it's your evening done, really. You know, you go to bed, you're up for work again the next day. And it can get a little bit draining when that's every single night. So what I've recommended to people before, you know, is focus your training a lot more, be a lot more specific with what we're doing, give yourself maybe some shorter rest times, and we can get in 3 50-minute sessions in the week. We can do what you were doing in 6 hour-and-a-half sessions. So that's a couple of hours a week, and like I say, a couple of nights a week where you could potentially have the night off, you know, or be doing it, but be even closer towards your goals. So this is where we think about our focused sort of training, guys, and being really specific towards what it is that we're trying to do. And this is why what works for one person might not work for somebody else as well. You know, maybe, you know, we're not long out of lockdown and a lot of COVID restrictions and stuff like that. Maybe you're thinking about a new exercise regime, and now you're sort of thinking, I don't really know where to start, and you've maybe got a friend who's doing the same thing and they've found something that's working for them. It's not necessarily going to be right for you because you might have different goals. Of course, doing something's better than doing nothing, guys. Like, got to get that out of the way with, you know. But yeah, if you're finding that you're hitting against certain obstacles and plateauing off and feeling like you're sort of coming to a bit of a stalemate with your exercise, it might be time just to change things up a little bit, and like I say, sort of refocus your attentions and stuff like that, guys. But that can actually be really helpful. And like I say, if you've got any questions about your own exercise and your own training, what's available, what might be best for you based on needs, injuries, goals, again, by all means, drop me an email, ask me in the chat, whatever it might be, guys. But always happy to help with stuff like that as well. Okay, guys, so let's shimmy on across and do the rear side of the body as well. So what we've got on this right hand side, we've actually got the trapezius is the first muscle, really, again, coming from the top down over, the first major muscle that we're going to come across on the rear side of the body. This is the one that I mentioned earlier on. In fact, I've zoomed back in again and get a bit of a better view on this right hand side as well. Why not? So again, we can see those striations, those fibers, how the muscle actually moves. So what we've got here, guys, like I say, is this trapezius muscle in the right. It looks like it starts at the back of your neck, and it kind of does start at the back of your neck, but it doesn't end at the back of your neck, like I think would be easy to sort of assume based on, like, this is kind of all we see of them sitting up here. You know, it brings our shoulders up towards our elbows and helps our shoulders come forwards and backwards. Or I guess pecs help our shoulders come forward, and our traps help our shoulders pull backwards as well. So what we can actually see, it starts at the base of the skull, sort of flares out into the shoulder, like we can actually see here, and we know, but then it tapers back inwards and actually connects on to the spine, sort of past halfway down. Yeah, so we can actually see that this muscle that starts up here runs all the way down to here and overlaps other muscles and stuff like that as well. Now, it's really easy to find that you might strengthen part of this muscle, but not others, you know. Again, I've had clients with sort of back problems in this sort of medium sort of area here, like the lower traps, we could call them, because, you know, done a lot of shrugs and stuff like that. Maybe it's in the gym when you've been training them and stuff like that. But then it's really easy to sort of neglect these parts further down, which is, again, a lot of sort of pulling movements and, you know, moving your sort of shoulder joint through certain ranges and stuff like that. But this is where the traps are, guys. And again, we can see it's a really big muscle, which again, you know, shows us why it's so easy to carry a lot of tension in those muscles. And again, we think about how this muscle should be, yeah, which is exactly how it is there on the diagram. And then you think about sort of society today and how our body looks different to that, you know, especially through lockdown. We've been sat down a little bit more, maybe sat at desks. Of course, we're all sat behind. There's a lot more of us sat behind the wheel of a car on a daily basis than there was 100 years ago as well. So, you know, if you think the muscle should look like that, you think how that muscle might stretch if that person's head starts to dip forward to be looking at their phone all day and their shoulders round forward because of bad posture, then that muscle is so stretched out, not all the time, yeah, which is again where we're going to get niggles, where we're going to get pain from, and why sometimes when your posture is bad and you go to put it right, it feels more painful to sit in the right position. It's just because your muscle's not used to being in that shape and that position anymore. But the traps is one of the ones that gets the most sort of wear and tear, I would say, from day to day. Like I say, just from how much time we do spend sat down at desks, hunched over, whatever it might be. So again, that's why we carry a lot of tension in that muscle. Okay, coming a little bit further down, we've got the Latissimus Dorsi, which is actually, sort these arrows out while we're on, this one in the back of the arm. Yeah, so we've got the muscle in the back of the arm, the tricep, like I mentioned earlier on. Again, we've got those 3 different muscle heads. Yeah, so there we go, guys. These arrows throwing us off. These arrows throwing me off. So that's the tricep in the back of the arm. The latissimus dorsi are the lats, wings, whatever you want to call them, are these ones here that I mentioned earlier on. So we can see how, you know, if you really work these muscles and develop them, they're just going to give you an even more sort of V-shaped physique. You know, especially coming into that smaller waist. And those are the muscles that really sort of, if you say like bodybuilders and stuff like that, walking around like they've got carpets under their arms, sometimes it's because their lats are big, sometimes it's because they think their lats are big and it's a bit of an ego thing going on. But yeah, that's where the lats are, guys. And like I say, we can see how they'd be really helpful in a lot of sort of pulling movements, especially when it comes to stuff like pull-ups and stuff like that. Again, we can see where the way that the sort of fibers run, so we know that they need to be stretched forwards to pull them back. Yeah, they need to be stretched sort of almost round the body to pull them back over. So those are the lats, or the latissimus dorsi, and they would be the lats, like I say. Coming a little bit further down, we've got the gluteus maximus. Yeah, the big old muscle in the bum, in the booty. Like I say, biggest single muscle in the body is this one here. Yeah, so again, of course, we're going to be using it when we're running, jumping, stepping up onto stuff, pushing things with your legs again to a degree can bring your bum muscles into play. But, you know, again, it's, if you think about it, it's kind of sitting on top of a hip joint, which is very similar to the shoulder. A lot of range because it's a ball in a socket joint. There's a lot of different ways you can move that bone in that joint. So of course it makes sense that we've got a lot of muscle around that joint, and there's a lot of kind of different ways you can activate and work that glute muscle. Okay, guys, coming a little bit further down, then we've got the hamstring. Yeah, back of the arm, back of the leg. Sorry, we've got the hamstring. Works opposite to the quadricep, kind of like the bicep and the tricep do. So, like I mentioned earlier on and demonstrated, when I contract my quadriceps, it causes my leg to extend and my knee to straighten. When I contract my hamstrings, it would be the opposite of that. Yeah. So if you were stood up on the spot and you wanted to bring the heel of one leg or one foot up towards your bum and bend your leg, it would be your hamstring that was doing that movement. Yeah, almost sort of like a curling movement, really. You know, we've got a bicep curl, yeah, which is doing it this way, and the hamstring works exactly the same. Hamstring will tighten, your knee will bend, because this would be your knee will come in, and your heel will come towards your bum. So hamstrings down the back of your leg. Then, of course, we've got the gastrocnemius, which is the fancy word for the calf muscle. And that is important for, again, a lot of sort of flexion at the ankle joint. Yeah. Actually helps you, again, get upstairs, running on your toes, all of that sort of thing as well, guys. So that is the calf muscle in the back of the leg. So yeah, come back out to normal view. There we go, guys. So really sort of in-depth look at the main major muscles that you would probably be exercising through most most workout routines, to be honest, no matter what it is, if you're doing sports, you're going to be using these muscles. If you're training in the gym, you're going to be using these muscles. If you're, whatever it is that you're doing, just even day to day, you're going to be using these muscles plus others, really, But when it comes to an exercise routine, these will be the main muscles that you're probably going to come across, especially in the gym. If you go to a so when we looked at the fitness equipment stuff, when we looked at the fitness kit, I think session 2, and how it works, we talked briefly about resistance machines and how they'll have information on them, including which muscles you're going to be using when you're on that machine. And these will be the names that you're going to come across, guys. Yeah, there might be a little diagram very similar to this, but whatever muscles you work and will be highlighted, so you can again see just visually. But again, now guys, if you go along to a machine and it says a bicep curl and it doesn't have that image on, at the end of the day, you're going to be working your bicep and you know where it is. So you can think to yourself, okay, it's a bicep curl. I've got an idea how to use this machine now. So yeah, these are the more common muscles that you're going to come across more often than not, guys. That's for sure. Okay, guys. So again, by all means, like if you ever do want to screen grab anything as we're going through, by all means do. But these sessions are always going to be available. You can always come back to this session even after you've watched it, and have a sort of scroll through and try and find each slide. So all the slides are sort of easily accessible for you if you want to come back and revise anything. And of course, my email's there if you've got any questions or if there's anything that you really sort of feel like you're struggling with this morning. And not just this morning, but in general, I guess. Okay, guys. Okay, where we at? Okay, so I sort of mentioned this earlier on, guys, as well. Just to run through it one more time, with a bit of visual help as well. So when we're talking about these muscle types, like I mentioned earlier on, we've got 3 different types of muscle. Yeah, we've got cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle, and smooth muscle. Yeah. Now, cardiac muscle, as we might be able to sort of figure out, or might have guessed, is found only in the heart. Yeah. Think of cardiac arrest. Think of cardiovascular exercise. All to do with the heart, guys. So cardiac muscle is found in the heart. And like I mentioned earlier on, it is what we class as involuntary. Yeah, you're not in control of your heartbeat, and you can, to an extent, you can manipulate it to speed up by doing exercises, or hopefully bring it down by resting a little bit, and not doing any exercise or not moving about too much. But our heart's going to beat, all being well, our heart's going to beat by itself, essentially from when we're born, or from when your heart kicks in to the moment that we die, really. So that would get quite like taxing and quite exhausting, if you have to tell your heart to beat every single time. So fortunately, guys, it's totally involuntary. And as I mentioned earlier on, the skeletal muscle in the body is the only muscle really that we have full control over. So the skeletal muscle, like I mentioned before, is attached to the skeleton, attached to your bones by tendons. Yeah. So we've got tendons which attach muscle to bones, and we've got ligaments which attach bone to bone. Yeah, so it's tendons that we're thinking about in this case. So tendons attach muscle to the bone, and like I say, these skeletal muscles are the voluntary ones. Yeah, if I decide that I'm going to look to the left, there you go. Yeah, chose to do that. Again, not to say that we, there's not certain conditions, disabilities, quirks, and all of that out there where it's not quite as black and white. But skeletal muscle, on paper, we have sort of full control over, and it's the only muscle in the body that we sort of, like I say, is voluntary in how we move it and when we move it. Okay, and that brings us up to our last type of muscle in the body, which is smooth muscle. So we're thinking about our organs, really. Yeah, so it's found in the internal organs and blood vessels. So veins, arteries, stomach, kidney, liver, whatever it is. It's all smooth muscle, so it's muscle. Of course, it moves, and it requires oxygen. All of these organs. But yeah, that's what we call smooth muscle, guys. Like I say, if you looked at them, they wouldn't have these sort of fibers, these striations, and that is where they get their name from. They're smooth, really, guys. And again, those are involuntary. You don't tell your stomach to digest. You don't tell your intestines to absorb nutrients into food, like out of food and stuff like that. Very luckily, again, guys, our body just does it and sort of automates itself. So we only end up having this muscle to worry about, really, and certainly in terms of controlling it and what we're doing with it. So yeah, guys, those are the three main types of muscle in the body, and the characteristics of them. Yeah, so we now have a bit more of an idea of, how we classify muscles, how we break them up, and that, maybe we're realizing there's more muscle in the body than just the ones that we do see in the mirror. It's about all the muscle and that good even balance. Like I've seen a lot of people in the gym over the years that are happy to train the muscles that look good in the mirror, but not the muscles that are essentially keeping them alive, in kidney, liver, heart, So yeah, it's all about that full balanced approach, guys, and again, trying to keep as fit as we can, and not just, working muscles that look good. Okay, guys, so I've got another quick little word search to do. Same again, we'll only spend 5 minutes on this and then we'll move on. But what we're doing now, we're picking out names of organs. Yeah, so we're going to move on and look at some organs, get an idea for what different jobs they do. Again, start to have a look about where they might be found in the body. So again, 5 minutes. Any organs you can think of, whether I've mentioned them already, maybe you've come across them before. Again, write them down if you want, pull them out, make a note of where they are. And then in a second, we'll go through and we'll go through the answers, and we'll again just start to have a bit of a deeper dive into these different organs, or these smooth muscles, should we say. So again, guys, we'll give it a couple of minutes and then we'll spin on. Because of course, when it comes to organs, guys, I think it's like we tend to we know that we have them and we might be familiar with certain names of them, but again, there's some in the body that like we have to like either remind ourselves what they do from time to time, or like I say, when it comes to organs in the body, it's easy to get certain jobs mixed up as well. Certainly like the liver and the kidney. What does one do? What does the other do? So yeah, we'll have a look through in just a minute and get a bit of a deep dive into what each of these major organs actually does. Okay, guys, cool. So another minute or two. How many's in that? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. I can see 9 off the top of my head. Let's just keep an eye on the chat as well while we're going through. Okay, guys. Okay, so let's spin on then. Okay, guys. So what we've got is a little answer slide ready to go. So, curiosity, how many was there? 1, 2, 3. I think that was 9. Yeah. Okay, guys. So as we can see across the top here, we've got intestines. Yeah. Then we've got pancreas, esophagus is there, of course, liver, kidneys, and stomach. Yeah, so well done if you got any of them. And of course, we've got a couple coming down over. We've got brain, spleen, and the last one that we've got is lungs. Yeah, so pretty much the major organs in the body all have very sort of specialist jobs to be doing as well. Because of course, really, guys, when we think about it, a lot, like pretty much all of these bar, I'm going to say the brain, which has its own thing going on. So all of these guys are found essentially in your midriff, really, in your torso, I guess you could say, kind of from like your pelvis to your neck, really, you know. So of course, again, thinking about the skeleton, we're thinking about our rib cage, which protects a lot of these organs. We've got the sternum or the breastplate, which your ribs actually connect to at the front. That gives them a lot of protection. Of course, when we're talking about core temperature, we need to keep our core temperature up because it's where these organs are. When our body deposits excess fat for insulation, or for like a little sort of nest egg for, you know, if food ever runs out, your body adds it to your midriff to not only add extra protection in terms of like insulation for your internal organs and these important internal organs which sit in your torso, but actually sort of physical padding as well, you know, guys. So you get double protection. So it's not just by accident that your body tends to store fat around your waist first. It's very, very clever evolutionary design, you know, that's actually helped us and our ancestors survive in the past. So yeah, that is why a lot of stored fat goes straight to your waist and to your torso, because again, that's where these important organs are. Your brain's a little bit different, of course, because it's in the old skull, it's in the cranium. But again, you know, the skull and the cranium does exactly the same job. You know, it's protection for, of course, sort of eyes and brain, really. You know, yeah, for your eyes and for your brain. But your skull is doing the same job as your rib cage, really. But yeah, all of these organs, guys, really, really important, and all have, like I say, very sort of specialist jobs to be doing. So let's get a look at what those jobs actually are. Okay, guys, cool. So what we've got. So we'll start on the left-hand side and we'll just work our way down as well, guys, I guess. So a couple of these we don't need to worry about too much, but we'll go into the main ones. So what we've got, starting off first, is the esophagus. So the esophagus is the tube that food will go down to get to your stomach. So we can see it's going to sort of come down, bypass all the other organs and straight into your stomach. Yeah, so this journey, this food from your mouth down into your stomach, only takes about 7 seconds. Only takes about 7 seconds, but it's the esophagus that it goes down, guys. So esophagus into the stomach, and then that's where your stomach's going to start to digest your food. Okay, guys. So then we've got the lungs. Now the lungs sit either side of our heart, because we know by now that our heart sits kind of central in your chest, behind that sternum, behind that breastplate. We've got lungs either side. Now those lungs actually inflate as we breathe in. You know, you can maybe feel it as you breathe in. You feel your stomach rise, your rib cage rise, and then of course as you breathe out, you might feel that starting to drop again. So our lungs are actually inflating as we are breathing in, inhaling that air, which includes oxygen, which we need. And then, of course, the oxygen goes from the lungs into our bloodstream, and then into that whole process that we talked about when we looked at how the heart works. Yeah, so our lungs are really important in bringing oxygen into our system and helping our body breathe, and get all the oxygen that it needs, really. So that's what the lungs are doing. That's where they sit. Then down from there, we've got the liver. Yeah, so we've got this one sitting just sort of under the lungs. Yeah, so the liver is it regulates sort of chemical levels in the blood, and sort of it excretes a product that we call bile. It just helps carry away waste products from the liver, gets it all out of the way with. And actually all the blood that leaves the stomach and the intestine passes through the liver as well. Yeah, so the liver is got an important job to do, and of course can be really really damaged by alcohol as well. You know, if you've ever heard of like cirrhosis, it's sort of like scarring on the liver. So that's where the liver sits, guys. That's what the liver does. Then of course we've got the kidneys. So you have one liver, you have two kidneys, unless you have a faulty kidney, in which case they will take it out, or sometimes they actually put another one in. You get a transplant, but they leave the old one in as well. So some people end up with three, you know. But you know that there's people out there with one kidney, two kidneys, three kidneys, but they're really, really good filters. Really, that's kind of what they are. The filters for getting rid of waste, toxic substances, returning vitamins and hormones, and sort of other vital substances into the bloodstream as well. And the kidneys receive a high blood flow that's filtered by sort of specialized blood vessels as well. So again, the kidney, very, very specific job for it to be doing. Again, we've got to look after these guys. You know, organs can be damaged by our lifestyle and our food choices, and a lot of the time, if we actually correct those lifestyle and food choices, our organs actually start to repair themselves, which is quite cool and quite interesting. They're very, very hardy, you know, very robust. Okay, guys, cool. So wouldn't worry too much about gallbladder or duodenum. Appendix is one that we kind of arguably don't really need anymore. It could cause a lot of pain if you've got something going on with it, and can be fatal if it bursts. So, you know, for the job that it does, they're actually pretty keen to take an appendix out these days if you're getting a lot of pain with them. Bladder, of course, we know is sort of like the last stop off on the way out your body for like liquids, urine, stuff like that, which is just waste products really, which is ready to be sort of passed out of the system after your body's extracted everything that it can really. So of course that's what the bladder does. Probably one with a function that we're a bit more familiar with, is it, you know, it's potentially one that we actually feel every single day when you need the toilet. So yeah, maybe you have come across that one before. Then we've got the trachea, guys. So we've got the windpipe, I guess, really the tube for the oxygen to go down, that goes to your lungs. So the esophagus takes your food to your stomach. Your trachea takes whatever we breathe in into your lungs. Yeah, which, like we know, it's not purely oxygen. Your body just takes out the oxygen that it can. So that's the trachea. Then we've got the heart, which, you know, we all know by now. We've looked at it in quite a lot of depth. We've got our diagram that we can use to go back and revise and sort of refresh our knowledge on the heart as well, and all the different sections of the heart. But we know what it is, guys. We know what it does, and we know why it's so important that we look after it now as well. Then, of course, we've got the stomach. The stomach is, of course, responsible for digesting your food. I think it's actually testament to how strong your stomach actually is, given that the acid that is in your stomach, if it were to get onto your hand, it would actually be capable of burning right through your hand, guys. So yeah, your stomach acid really, really strong, which again, you know, tells us why if we get it like an increase, if it's extra acidic, you know, that's why maybe sometimes we get to start some of that heartburn and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, that's what the stomach does, guys. The spleen, of course, we've got the spleen sort of tucked away behind the stomach. Spleen was always one that I was familiar with, but didn't really know what it did. It seemed to be like you hear about them in like movies, cartoons, and they always seem to have ruptured or something like that. So the spleen is so it's an abdominal organ involved in the production and removal of blood cells, and actually forms part of the immune system as well, guys. So a big part of our immune system, which helps us fight off infection and external diseases and sort of foreign bodies that get into your system. So really helpful there. We've done kidneys, small and large in fact, pancreas. Yeah, so we'll do pancreas. So the pancreas is responsible for like a lot of chemicals and enzymes and stuff like that in your body, and produces several hormones, including insulin. Helps control our blood sugar amongst other things. Yeah, that's what the pancreas does, guys. Of course, we know the small intestine is pretty much responsible for passing food through your system, and sort of extracting any nutrients, any goodness out of it that it can. Once your stomach's broken it down and made it a little bit easier to do that. Yeah. So they further digesting food that comes from the stomach, absorbing nutrients such as your vitamins, your minerals, your carbs, proteins, fats. So all of those micro and macronutrients that we've talked about before as well, guys. So like I say, there's not really many of these or any of these that we've talked about just then that do the same job, which is why they are again so important. And we need to be making food choices that aren't just about weight gain and weight loss and getting to a certain figure on the scales, be that, putting mass on or losing body fat. It's not just about how heavy we physically are, guys. It's about how well we are. It's about how optimal can we function. Is our body are our organs in good health? Is stuff on the inside that we can't see, is that nice and healthy as well? Not just the stuff on the outside that we can see. Of course, our health is all inclusive. We're thinking about all of these different things when we're talking about health and fitness as well, guys. Thinking about taking care of ourselves and all of these different parts of the machine that is the body, that they all do their own specific jobs, and we would struggle without them, guys. There is a reason that across hundreds, thousands of years of evolution, our body has kept hold of and developed the things that it has. We really are a finely tuned machine, which we've got that argument of like, has the human body ended up the way that it has by accident, or is there a larger force at work that has specifically put us together the way that we are put together now? That could be a conversation for another day altogether. But I think both of those explanations are equally fascinating. We've either turned out this way by accident or design, and I think the answer to either of those is really interesting. But that, like I say, gives us an idea of not just our skeletal muscle, guys. We're talking about all the muscle in the body now, and we've got a much deeper understanding of all of that. We're thinking about, okay, like what do my organs do? What do I need to be thinking about in terms of food and nutrition and stuff like that? And this is actually a good example of or a good explanation of how your body burns calories as well. Because like what we've got homeostasis, really, which is your body maintaining itself, and it is kind of all of these internal organs doing their jobs. But it requires energy, guys. It requires calories at the end of the day. So you might actually, through all of these organs doing their jobs and breathing and thinking and stuff like that, you can actually burn calories. Yeah, so you're actually burning calories. So you could burn upwards of 1,000 calories a day just from all of this here without even moving out of bed. you could burn upwards of 1,000, and probably do burn upwards of 1,000 calories every single day before you've even moved anywhere, or like aside from even moving anywhere, you know. So you then add your movements and your exercise and your activities on top, and you need to have the calories to account for those as well. It goes to show why sort of like a 700 calorie diet's never going to work, because you're not going to get enough calories for even your organs to do their jobs. Never mind have the energy to go to the gym and run and get fit and all of that sort of thing as well. So you actually need to make sure you're getting enough calories for all of this to be able to function and for you to still be able to do what it is that you want to go and do. Yes, you will lose weight in a calorie deficit, but it's got to be the right calorie deficit. And that calorie deficit has got to be worked out, factoring all of this into account as well. You know, it's not just how many calories have I burnt a day by exercising and running. Like, okay, I've done this many steps today. That's 500 calories. You know, I can only eat 400 calories to be in a deficit. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you're probably burning, you know, like I say, upwards of 1,000 calories a day. You know, so really, the bare minimum for calories that a lot of people would probably want to be on sort of 12 to 1,500, if not a little bit more, guys, you know. So if all of this muscle and all of these organs are working every single day, you know, we need to make sure we're getting enough calories in, guys, and not really under eating, because if we're on this fitness journey to feel good and then we eat half the calories that our body needs, we're actually going to end up feeling worse, guys. You know, so we need to be getting enough food and enough calories and enough energy in to help these organs actually do their jobs as well. So another reason and another good example of why we shouldn't starve ourselves, really, guys. But you know, hopefully that's given you a little bit more of, just like I say, an understanding of your own body and maybe why certain things feel a certain way, and like I say, just coming to terms with your own sort of anatomy a little bit. And that'll about wrap us up for today, actually, guys. Can't believe how fast this morning's gone over. I apologize that we got started a tiny bit late. That is, of course, technical issues. It always picks a Monday, because why not? So yeah, guys, we'll be back next week where we're actually going to have a bit more of a in-depth look at the skeleton, different joints in the body, and then we can actually pair that up with what we've learned today and think about our movements a little bit more and think about good movement patterns, which in turn helps us stay away from bad movement patterns where we're going to pick up injuries and niggles and stuff like that, and either hurt muscles or compromise bone, you know, which is arguably worse. So yeah, we'll get a little bit more in depth at the human body next week, looking at how it works, how it moves. So what we've got there, guys, of course, I've always got this last slide, so if you ever need to come back and sort of pick out any important information again nice and quick, you can do it by just sort of scanning through the video rather than needing to listen to the full session again. So of course my email address is on there, guys. If you need me, any questions, any queries, anything like that, by all means do sort of reach out, drop me an email. We'll be back next week, like I say, at the same time, and we'll be looking at the skeleton and the joints in the body. Of course, as always, guys, please don't forget to complete that survey. So the survey, just going to double check it is there. I think it is. I'm sure it was there when I looked earlier. Yeah, so again, in the description for today's video, there'll be a link that says survey, or a link next to the word that says survey. If you click that link, it'll take you straight to the survey. You can just put in your answers, and then the answers come straight back to us. You don't need to download it. You don't need to email it back to us or anything like that. None of that kerfuffle. So all you need to do, click the link, put in your answers. Not even 30 seconds, guys. So yeah, don't forget to do that. It gives us some important information that we need for paperwork on this end on your behalf, and at the same time, your feedback's always important to us, guys. We like to know what your thoughts are, and like I say, your feedback are. So yeah, so the survey is there, my email address is there, all the other learner info that you might need is in there, and at the same time, like I mentioned earlier on, we've got a little fitness video in there as well. So I've picked us a nice one for today. We've got something a little bit different to do. Of course, that will take you straight to the YouTube playlist as well. So if you're, maybe he's not thinking about doing today's session, which is sort of full body and cardio, because I wanted you to be able to think about each of these different muscles working at different times throughout the workout. But again, if you're thinking, do you know what, I fancy something a little bit more relaxed this morning, you can go on and try like the stretching session or the chair-based exercise, which you can do from sitting down, or there's abs workouts on there as well, so you can maybe jump in and say, I just want to do my core today, I just want to do those core exercises. So there's something on there for everybody, guys, but the link is in the description. That'll take you straight to our playlist. So like I say, there's a little bit of something in there for everybody, guys, as well. So plenty to be cracking on with, even if you don't really fancy doing this week's session for whatever reason. There's always something for you to be doing, guys. So no excuses there. Right, guys. So we'll wrap up there, guys, and we'll finish there. Let you get on with the rest of your Monday. Of course, if you're watching later on in the week, I hope you've enjoyed it as well, and have had a good week, however far in the week you've made it. Like I say, we'll be back next Monday to do that next session and keep the ball rolling. As always, guys, you know where I'm at in the meantime. If you need me, stay safe, take care of yourself and those around you. Have a good week, and a good weekend when we finally get there. And yeah, you know where I'm at if you need me in the meantime, guys. Until then, stay safe, and I'll speak to you next Monday, if not before. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Have a good one. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye.